Jens, have you ever looked down at your hand and thought, could these fingers actually say something about who I am? Sounds crazy, right? But here's the thing. Scientists have studied this, and the results are mind-blowing. Let's start simple. Hold out your hand, palm facing you. Look at your index finger and your ring finger. Which one is longer? Are they about the same? Believe it or not, this tiny difference in length has been linked to personality traits, confidence levels, and even success tendencies. Yeah, your fingers are basically spilling secrets about you without saying a word. Here's the basic rule people talk about. If your ring finger is longer than your index finger, you're in team ring finger. Confident, bold, a natural risk taker. If your index finger is longer, you're team index finger. Analytical, thoughtful, and more likely to plan than to jump in head first. If they're about the same length, you might just be the perfect balance, the diplomat of the group. But wait, this isn't just superstition or a party trick. There's some real science behind it. It's connected to something called the 2D to 4D ratio, which is just a fancy way of saying the ratio between your index finger, that's the 2D, and your ring finger, the 4D. Researchers believe this ratio is influenced by hormone exposure, specifically testosterone and estrogen, while you were developing in the womb. So yeah, this goes all the way back to before you were even born. Now, why does that matter? Well, testosterone and estrogen play big roles in shaping not just your body, but your brain. More testosterone exposure in the womb, it tends to make your ring finger longer, and that has been linked, not guaranteed, but linked to traits like confidence, competitiveness, and a higher tolerance for risk, which, if you think about it, can explain a lot about why some people love challenges and others prefer a safe, well-planned path. Now, before we go further, let me make something clear. This is not fortune telling. This doesn't mean you're doomed to one personality or one career path just because of your fingers. It's more like a fun window into tendencies you might have. A lot of people find this super accurate, and others are like, nope, that's not me at all. Either way, it's fascinating to think about. And here's a fun little exercise. If you're watching this with friends or family, pause the video for a second and compare hands. Whose ring finger is longer? Who's got the longer index finger? Start making guesses about who's the bold one, who's the planner, who's the smooth talker. Trust me, it's always a good laugh and kind of scary how often it matches up. So why does this matter to you? Because understanding these traits can actually help you in real life, in relationships, in your career, even in the way you set goals for yourself. If you know you're more of a risk taker, you can use that to your advantage or learn when to pump the brakes. And if you're the thoughtful, detail-oriented type, you can lean into that strength without feeling pressured to be something you're not. All right, in the next part, we're going to dive into what it really means if your ring finger is longer than your index finger. This is the personality profile that's bold, adventurous, and maybe just a little competitive. Sound like you? Stick around and find out if this fits, because you might see yourself in every single word. All right, if you're here, chances are your ring finger is longer than your index finger. Or maybe you're just curious about what it means for people who are. Either way, buckle up, because this personality type is full of surprises. So what's the deal with the long ring finger crew? People with this trait are often described as bold, confident, and naturally competitive. These are the folks who don't just wait for opportunities, they go out and create them. If there's a challenge, they're usually the first to say, I got this. Now, why is that? Well, remember what we talked about in part 1, that connection to testosterone exposure in the womb? Researchers have found that a lower 2D to 4D ratio, which is fancy talk for ring finger longer than index, tends to show up in people who are more assertive and more willing to take risks. And honestly, that makes sense. These are the people who'll take the leap when everyone else is still standing on the edge. You know what else is fascinating? Studies suggest that people with longer ring fingers often do really well in areas where quick decisions and confidence matter, like business, sports, and leadership roles. They're not afraid to make the big moves. In fact, some of the most successful entrepreneurs and athletes fall into this category. Coincidence? Maybe, but it's an interesting pattern. Here's another fun fact. Some research even links this finger ratio to better spatial awareness and problem solving under pressure. So if you've ever wondered why you're great at navigating or why you stay calm when things get intense, your fingers might just be part of the reason. But before we crown you the ultimate risk taker, let's talk about the flip side. Confidence is awesome until it turns into overconfidence. People in this group can sometimes jump in without thinking things through. And yeah, that can backfire. Big ideas and big bets are exciting, but they also come with big risks. So if you're team ring finger, remember, being bold is your superpower, but planning is your shield. Use both. Now, let's talk about relationships, because this part always blows people's minds. Studies have hinted that people with longer ring fingers might have a little extra charm. Yeah, we're talking natural flirt energy. Apparently, that same confidence that shows up in decision-making also shows up in social situations. They're more likely to make the first move, start a conversation, or take that chance on someone new. Sound familiar? If you're nodding right now, you might just be classic ring finger energy. But here's what's important. This isn't about good or bad, better or worse. It's just different wiring, and understanding it can make a big difference in how you play to your strengths. So here's a quick recap. You love challenges, you're comfortable taking risks, you thrive when the pressure's on. You might have a natural charm that draws people in, but you also need to watch out for rushing into things without a plan. Balance that boldness with a little strategy and you're unstoppable. Now, what if your index finger is longer than your ring finger? Totally different story, and we're diving into that next. If that's you or someone you know, Part 3 is going to explain why these folks are the master planners, the deep thinkers, and the ultimate strategists. You don't want to miss this one. All right, now it's time for the other team, the people whose index finger is longer than their ring finger. If that's you, congratulations. You belong to one of the most thoughtful and strategic groups out there. This personality type is often misunderstood because it's not as flashy as the bold risk takers. But trust me, these people have a superpower that can change everything. So what does a longer index finger really say about you? For starters, you're probably someone who values order, planning, and stability. You don't just jump into things blindly. You analyze, you prepare, and you think 3 steps ahead. People in this category are often described as cautious but calculated. And here's the kicker. In the long run, this approach can lead to incredible success because you're less likely to make reckless mistakes. Think about it. In a world where everyone is rushing, being the one who stops to plan is a huge advantage. You're the person who checks the map before driving, reads the instructions before building, and thinks about the consequences before saying yes. That's not boring. That's smart. Now, let's talk about the science. Remember how we said the finger ratio connects to hormones in the womb? A higher 2D to 4D ratio, index finger longer than ring, tends to be linked with more estrogen exposure. Research suggests this might contribute to traits like empathy, patience, and strong communication skills. And honestly, the world needs more of that. Here's what makes this group fascinating. While they might not always be the loudest in the room, they're often the most respected because they bring stability. People trust you. Friends come to you for advice. In work settings, you're the one who keeps projects on track. You're like the anchor when everyone else is being tossed around by the waves. Now, does that mean you hate taking risks? Not necessarily. You can take big risks too, but when you do, they're usually well researched and well calculated. That's the difference. While the ring finger crew jumps off the cliff hoping to build a parachute on the way down, you're the person who checks if the parachute works before jumping. And guess what? That saves a lot of headaches. But like any strength, there's a downside. If you're in this group, you might struggle with overthinking. Sometimes you spend so much time analyzing that you miss the moment. That dream job, that big opportunity, it passed by because you were still making a pros and cons list. So here's your challenge. Trust yourself a little more. You've done the research, you've thought it through, now take the leap. What about relationships? People with longer index fingers often value loyalty and deep connections. You're not into shallow flings or quick wins. You want something real. That means you might take your time before opening up, but once you do, you're all in. And honestly, that makes you an amazing partner. So let's recap. You're thoughtful and strategic. You plan before acting, and that saves you from big mistakes. You value stability, honesty, and trust in relationships. You might struggle with overthinking, but once you act, you usually win. Sounds like you? If so, own it. This world needs planners just as much as it needs risk takers. In fact, the best teams usually have both. Now, what if your index finger and ring finger are about the same length? That's a whole different story. And in part 4, we're going to talk about the perfect balanced personality. These people have the best of both worlds. And trust me, you'll want to hear this one. All right, we've talked about the bold risk takers and the master planners. But what if your index finger and ring finger are about the same length? Guess what? You've hit the middle ground, and that's a very interesting place to be. People in this category are often called the diplomats, and for good reason. You're the kind of person who balances confidence with caution, action with planning. You're not too impulsive, but you're also not stuck in overthinking. And that, my friend, is a powerful combination. Let's break this down. If your fingers are almost the same length, it means you're naturally wired for adaptability. You can handle change without freaking out, and you can make decisions without freezing up. Basically, when life throws a curveball, you're the one who can step back, think for a second, and then act with confidence. Now, personality-wise, this often shows up as someone who's easy to get along with. You're not extreme in any direction, and that makes you approachable, relatable, and great at building connections. People probably describe you as level-headed and reasonable, which means friends trust you, coworkers respect you, and even strangers feel comfortable around you. Here's what's fascinating. Studies suggest that people with balanced finger lengths often excel in roles that require communication and mediation. You're the person who can see both sides of an argument, find common ground, and bring people together. In a world full of extremes, you're the bridge, and that is an amazing gift. But let's be real. Being balanced doesn't mean life is perfect. Sometimes you might struggle with indecision, especially when you're stuck between two good options. Why? Because you see both sides so clearly. You understand the pros and cons, and that can make choosing harder. So here's a tip. When in doubt, trust your gut. You've got good instincts. Use them. Now let's talk about success. People with this personality type often thrive in careers where flexibility and people skills matter. Think leadership, management, counseling, creative industries, anywhere you need both vision and practicality. You're great at reading the room, and that makes you a natural at building trust and influence. What about relationships? You're the partner everyone dreams of. Seriously, you're balanced, fair, and emotionally intelligent. You're not likely to play games or act on impulse. Instead, you invest in relationships, communicate openly, and make the people around you feel heard. If that sounds like you, don't underestimate how rare and valuable that is. So let's recap your strengths. You're adaptable and calm under pressure. You're approachable, friendly, and diplomatic. You excel at communication and finding balance. You can thrive in almost any environment because of your flexibility. And your challenge? Avoid getting stuck in analysis paralysis when making big decisions. Remember, balance doesn't mean hesitation. It means you can act decisively when the time is right. So now we've covered all three main types: the risk taker, long ring finger, the planner, long index finger, and the diplomat, balanced fingers. But in part 5, we're going to take this to another level. The big picture. How does this finger length theory connect to your life, your relationships, and even your future success? And most importantly, can you use this knowledge to become the best version of yourself? Stick around, because this next part is where it all comes together. All right, so now you know what your fingers say about your personality, whether you're a bold risk taker, a master planner, or the balanced diplomat. But here's the real question. What do you do with that knowledge? How does this actually help you in your everyday life? Because let's be real, this isn't just a fun party trick. Understanding yourself is one of the most powerful tools you can have. When you know your strengths and weaknesses, you can make better choices, build stronger relationships, and even set yourself up for success in ways you never thought about before. Let's break it down. 1. Own your strengths. If you've got a long ring finger, you're naturally bold. You thrive on challenges. You've got that competitive energy that pushes you to the top. Use that. Take on projects that let you shine. Go after opportunities that others might be scared of. But remember, your superpower can become your weakness if you're not careful. So stay bold, but stay smart. If you've got a long index finger, you're the strategist, the planner, the person who thinks ahead when everyone else is rushing in. That's huge. Use that to your advantage in your career, your relationships, your goals. People will look to you for guidance because you see the big picture. But here's the catch. Don't let overthinking hold you back. Sometimes the best move is just to move. And if you've got balanced fingers, you're the bridge builder, the diplomat, the one who brings harmony when things get messy. That's a gift. Use it in leadership roles, team projects, or anywhere communication matters. Just make sure you don't get stuck in the middle when a decision needs to be made. 2. Understand others. This isn't just about you. It's about everyone around you. Once you know these traits, you'll start to see them in your friends, your coworkers, your partner. That risk-taking friend? Probably a long ring finger. The super organized coworker who always has a plan? Likely a long index finger. The friend who gets along with everyone? Balanced fingers. When you understand what drives people, you can communicate better, avoid unnecessary conflict, and build stronger connections. That's next level emotional intelligence. 3. Apply it to success. Whether you're choosing a career path, starting a business, or even deciding how to manage your time, knowing your natural tendencies matters. Are you the type who thrives on action, or do you need structure and planning to feel confident? There's no wrong answer, but knowing the answer helps you design a life that fits you. Here's an example. Risk takers often do well in entrepreneurship, sales, and competitive environments. Planners excel in research, management, and roles that need precision. Diplomats crush it in leadership, customer relations, and creative industries. 4. Remember, it's not destiny. Now, this part is important. Your fingers don't control your life. You do. These traits are tendencies, not rules. Just because you're wired one way doesn't mean you can't grow in another direction. A risk taker can learn patience. A planner can learn boldness. A diplomat can learn decisiveness. That's the beauty of being human. We're adaptable. So what's the takeaway? Look at your hand right now. Those fingers tell a story, but you're the author. You decide what happens next. If you found this fascinating, here's what you can do. Check your friend's hands and see if it matches their personality. Drop a comment and tell us what you discovered. And if you want more mind-blowing content like this, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications because we've got so much more coming your way. Thanks for watching, and remember, self-awareness is your superpower. Use it.